Hey everyone, before we get into tonight's story, if you're enjoying the content, please hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel out. Also, drop a comment below letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I always love hearing from you guys. All right, let's get into it. This happened about 3 years ago when I was working as a data entry clerk for a company I'm not going to name. The job itself was pretty straightforward, inputting information into databases, organizing files, the usual boring office work. Nothing glamorous, but it paid the bills. The building was downtown, one of those older high-rises with narrow hallways and outdated fixtures. During the day, it was normal enough. People chatting by the coffee machine, phones ringing, the usual office atmosphere. But I wasn't on the night shift. I worked the night shift from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., and that's when things were different. I took the night shift because it paid more, and honestly, I preferred the quiet. No office politics, no small talk, just me and my work. The first few weeks were fine. I'd arrive, swipe my badge at the front entrance, take the elevator to the 9th floor, and settle into my cubicle. There were usually only 3 or 4 other people working nights in the whole building, and I rarely saw them. The first thing I noticed that seemed off was the 10th floor. Our office took up floors 8 through 12, but the 10th floor was different. The elevator buttons would light up for every floor except 10. If you pressed it, nothing happened. I asked my supervisor about it during my first week. "Oh, that floor is under renovation," he said, barely looking up from his computer. "Has been for a while. Just avoid it." That made sense, I guess. Old building, always something being updated. I didn't think much of it. But then I started noticing the sounds. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, when the building was at its quietest, I'd hear footsteps above me. Not the scattered sounds of construction or work crews. Rhythmic footsteps, like someone pacing back and forth. Sometimes I'd hear what sounded like furniture being dragged across the floor. I convinced myself it was the building settling, or maybe night maintenance doing something, but the footsteps were too deliberate, too human. One night, about a month into the job, I was working late on a particularly tedious project when I heard the elevator ding. I glanced at my phone, 3:42 a.m. I wasn't expecting anyone. The elevator doors opened and I heard footsteps heading down the hall, but they stopped before reaching my area. Then, nothing. No doors opening, no voices, just silence. I got up and walked toward the elevator lobby. Empty. All the hall lights were on, fluorescent and humming, but there was nobody there. I checked the stairwell door, locked from the inside, like always. I went back to my desk, telling myself I'd imagined it, that I was tired. The next night, it happened again. Same time, 3:42 a.m. Elevator ding, footsteps, then nothing. This became a pattern. Every single night, 3:42, like clockwork. I mentioned it to one of the other night shift workers, a guy named Derek who worked in accounting 2 floors down. His expression changed when I brought it up. "You hear it too?" he asked quietly. "Hear what?" "Just don't worry about it, man. Do your work, collect your paycheck, and don't ask questions. That's the deal here." That was the first time someone had acknowledged something was actually wrong. But Derek wouldn't say anything else. He just walked away. I started paying closer attention after that. I noticed that the cleaning crew never came to our floor. They'd come to 8, 11, and 12, but they'd skip 9 entirely. When I asked the janitor why, he just shook his head and moved his cart along faster. Then there was the smell. Sometimes, usually after the phantom footsteps stopped, there'd be this odor in the hallway. Not quite rotting, but organic and wrong, like meat left in a warm room too long. It would linger for maybe 20 minutes, then disappear. I started keeping a log of everything weird that happened. The footsteps at 3:42, the smell, the way my computer would sometimes flicker at exactly the same time every night. The way the temperature would drop 10 degrees in the span of a minute, then return to normal. But here's what really got to me. The files.
Part of my job was digitizing old employee records. One night, I was scanning through boxes of files from the 1990s when I found something strange. There were multiple employee files for people listed as working on the 10th floor. Department names I didn't recognize: Special Projects Division, Observational Research Unit, job titles that made no sense. And all of them had termination dates within the same 2-week period in October 1997. Every single one. Dozens of people, all terminated at once. The reason listed was always the same: position eliminated due to departmental restructuring. I looked up the company history that night on my phone. In October 1997, there had been a fire on the 10th floor. 3 people died. The news articles said it was electrical, an accident, but the employee files I'd found listed way more than 3 people working on that floor. I should have quit right then, but rent was due and I needed the money, so I kept going. The next week, I made a mistake. I was alone on the floor and I decided to take the stairs up to 10 just to see if I could get in. The door from the 9th floor stairwell had a window, and I could see that the 10th floor landing was dark. I climbed up, and when I reached the door to the 10th floor, I stopped. The door was warm to the touch. Not hot, but warmer than it should be. And I could smell that smell again, stronger now, coming from underneath the door. I pressed my ear against it, and I heard them, the footsteps. Multiple sets walking in circles, overlapping each other. And something else, a low humming sound, almost mechanical, but with a rhythm that felt organic. I backed away and practically ran down the stairs. The next night, I called in sick, and the night after that. On the 3rd night, I got a call from my supervisor. "You need to come in tonight," he said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "There's a file on your desk you need to process. It's important." "I'm not feeling well," I said. "Come in tonight." Then he hung up. I didn't go. Instead, I spent the evening looking for a new job. I sent out applications, updated my resume, anything to avoid going back. But 2 nights later, my bank account was suddenly frozen. When I called the bank, they said my employer had reported suspicious activity on my account. It made no sense, but I needed that money, so I went back. When I arrived that night, there was a file on my desk, a plain manila folder with no label. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a list of names. My name was at the bottom. Above it were about 30 other names. Some were the names I'd seen in those old employee records from the 10th floor. At the top of the page, in red ink, someone had written, "Observation complete." I left the building immediately and never went back. I didn't even grab my things. I called the next day and quit over the phone. They didn't argue. They just processed my termination and sent my final paycheck. Here's the thing, though. About 6 months later, I was scrolling through job listings and I saw the same position I'd worked advertised again: night shift data entry clerk. Same building, same floor, same hours. The listing had been posted and reposted every few weeks since I left. I looked up the company's employee page recently. There's still no mention of what's on the 10th floor, and if you look at the building from the street at night, every floor has lights on except for 10. That floor stays dark. But sometimes, if you watch long enough, you can see shapes moving past the windows. I still don't know what I was really doing there or what they were observing, but I know I got out lucky. And I know that somebody's working that shift right now, sitting in that same cubicle, hearing those same footsteps. And they probably think it's nothing too. So that's the story. Let me know in the comments what you think was happening on that 10th floor. And remember, if a job seems too good to be true, especially the night shift, maybe there's a reason nobody else wants it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.